Hello there, Scapers. My name is Zenevilius and hope you're all well. In particular, I hope all your accounts are well after the carnage of the last few days with login issues and rollbacks and errors loading your profile. It's really a stressful time both for players and Jagex employees trying to fix the problem, so I'll leave some links in the description below if you're still struggling with that, and I really hope it's all sorted out for you guys. And let's get right into this video. So, earlier this week, Jagex announced on a surprise livestream that we're going to get Dagannoth Queens. That's what I'm going to call them anyway, because they're meant to be female spiritual successors to the Dagannoth Kings. A bit harder, but very similar in terms of their drops and their mechanics. So what are they? What are these Rex Matriarchs? Well, they're going to be situated in the center of Anachronia in the Spirit Grove region. You're going to be able to get here using an Orthan teleportation device, which presumably won't have any archaeology requirements. Or of course the boss portal is probably the easiest way to get there. They're meant to be God Wars 2 difficulty, so these are three similar monsters to the Dagannoth Kings. One attacks with mage and is weak to range, one attacks with range and is weak to melee, and the other one attacks with melee and is weak to mage. Exactly the same as the regular Dagannoth Kings, but they're going to have 190k life points each. So God Wars Dungeon 2 difficulty, a few mechanics, nothing too crazy. They mentioned in the stream that it's going to be a pretty chill boss, and I'm actually looking forward to that because I feel like most of the bosses that come out require you to be really good. Sometimes you don't actually need that. You don't need to have constantly challenging bosses for high-end PVMers. You want something chill from time to time, and this is a nice link back to the original Dagannoth Kings in my opinion. So you're going to need all three styles, all three combat styles to tackle these monsters, because they're going to be very resistant to attacks from styles that they're not weak to. So you're going to have to switch weapons or bring a team where at least one person is using a different style. I assume a lot of people are going to be massing this, or at least trioing this on day of release, because yes, masses are going to be allowed. Should be a lot of fun actually. I'm looking forward to it. Not too hard, not too easy. Bit of a throwback to Dagannoth Kings when they were actually really tough. I can still remember, I think our second ever video on this channel was about Dagannoth Kings and a guide on them, and they were really challenging, at least to get to anyway, because they had to go through so many levels of tunnels to get to them. They didn't show too much in the way of mechanics, but I don't think that matters too much anyway. They're going to have maybe one or two mechanics which is going to be avoidable. They did mention that sometimes the mechanics might aid you in killing one of the other Rex Matriarchs. So as you can see in the background, this seems like a mage attack that hones in on a particular spot. So if you put that spot above the melee Matriarch, then maybe that will hit the melee Matriarch. So it's going to be kind of interesting. Another thing to note is that they are going to be classed as dinosaurs for the purposes of Slayer. So if you want, you can get a dinosaur Slayer task and get yourself that nice little Slayer boost on day of release. There's going to be one feat for these guys, and it's going to be to kill them within 5 seconds of each other. So a bit similar to Yakamaru's Altogether Now feat, although that's much, much harder than this will probably be. So enough on the bosses, let's get to the rewards, because I assume that's what a lot of people are watching this video for. First things first. Each boss is going to come with a boss pet, as usual, and this is going to be my personal priority because I'm going for Insane Final Boss, so I want to get these boss pets as quickly as possible. I've got to say the pets themselves, they look really, really good. The amount of detail on them is insane. If you compare these to the Dagannoth Kings pets, which are still using the old model, it's a stark contrast of about 15 years in the evolution of the graphics, which is kind of nice to see actually. So if you have a friend who gets one of these pets and you've got one of the old pets, then maybe compare them side by side, because yeah, that's two different generations of graphics right there. We don't know what the drop rate's going to be, but if it's going to be like DKs, it's going to be 1 in 2,500 per egg with a threshold of 1,500 shared between the three of them. I assume it's going to be slightly higher, probably closer to God Wars 2 pets, which are 1 in 2,000 with a threshold of 400, or in this case it would be 400 times 3, 1,200. That seems more likely given their life points and their higher difficulty than Dagannoth Kings. The second set of rewards that they're going to be able to drop is an item called a heart, which is going to be an upgrade to the regular Dagannoth Kings. And these are going to allow you to create the best in slot rings for each combat style, or close to it. Now you're going to need 10, that's right, 10 of each DK's ring to upgrade them, which I suppose can be looked at in two ways. Firstly, it makes sense because these are really powerful rings, and if you only need one, then people aren't going to be doing the regular Dagannoth Kings anymore. But the reason I think they chose to make it 10 is because of the Archer's Ring duplication, which happened, I don't know, sometime in the last decade. But basically it introduced millions and millions of Archer's Rings into the game by accident, which couldn't be undone. And that basically crashed the value of Archer's Rings relative to the other rings massively. I'm talking almost 10 times. So I think that's the main reason for it. It kind of sucks for Iron Man because they have to camp Dagannoth Kings for 10 of each of the rings they want to upgrade, which really sucks. Obviously, if you're buying it off the GE, then that's fine because they're not that expensive. But either way, because of the value of these rings rising massively, I would highly suggest you do a lot of Dagannoth Kings this weekend. And I mean a lot. If you're an Iron Man, you definitely have to do them, obviously, in order to upgrade them. But even if you're a normal player who's going for Insane Final Boss, for example, this would be a great time to camp them, make some money at the same time as working towards those 3 Dagannoth Kings pets. In terms of the upgrade itself, the upgrade item from the Rex Matriarchs is going to be called Hot, and it's going to be tradable, but when you combine it with 10 of the respective Dagannoth Kings rings, it's going to become untradeable permanently. So you can choose to either upgrade or sell, unlike, say, the Araxi Fang, Web and Eye, and each Matriarch will drop its respective style of ring, except the melee one, Orichalca, will drop both the Berserker Heart as well as the Warrior's Heart, the same as Dagannoth Rex. Let's talk about the Champion's Ring, which is the melee-specific ring. It's got plus 30 in strength, which is the best in slot. And the special effect is going to be that it will grant a 3% critical strike chance against bleeding targets. So I can definitely see this being used with the Masterwork Spear and the Strength Cape perk. So for example, you might use Dismember or Slaughter and then immediately use an ability that will allow you to crit, like Assault, which is really nice, but it's nothing groundbreaking, I would say, except the pure stat of the ring. In terms of the ranged one, it's got the Stalker Ring, not related to the Stalker Slayer creatures at all. But in the case of this one, they've tried to make it so it improves the appeal of regular bows. There's nothing awesome about this special effect, which is that it will grant 3% critical strike chance when wielding a bow. By bow, this refers exclusively to longbows and short bows, not crossbows. So they're trying something to revive bows. I don't think it's going to work really. That's not enough. That's nowhere near enough to bring, say, the Hex Hunter bow or even the Seren God bow on par with the Eldritch crossbow, or even Ascensions with Backcriminal bolts. On the topic of the Hex Hunter bows, there was a bit of hype around it in the market when the stream was happening, and I managed to get in on it for a little bit of profit, not a huge amount, but the market was pretty volatile. I'm just getting back into flipping, guys. It's been years since I did any flipping in RS. It's years since I played, to be fair, but yeah, just wanted to share it with you. And the fact that you can also take advantage of the volatile market after a stream or an announcement. Just give it a go. You just never know what's going to happen. The Mage Ring is actually quite interesting because, again, it's got the same stats, plus 30 to Mage, plus 5 to Prayer, but the special effect is that channeled abilities will gain a 4% critical strike chance per hit of the channeled ability. So I can see this being used with Concentrated Blast quite often. Usually people cancel Concentrated Blast after the second hit because it's not really worth doing the third hit. So the first 2 hits of Concentrated Blast will give you a 10% critical strike chance even without this ring on your next hit. With this ring, that will be 4 plus 4, 8, so 18%. Which is huge. 18% critical strike chance for your next hit. So I can see people using Concentrated Blast and Wild Magic. That could be really powerful. If you do all 3 hits of Concentrated Blast, that will be 27% critical strike chance on your next hit. This, of course, will also apply to Asphyxiate because that's also a channeled ability. Asphyxiate on its own doesn't grant you any critical hit boosts, but with this ring on, by the time you do the 3rd hit of Asphyxiate, you'll have a 12% critical strike chance on your next hit of Asphyxiate. So actually, it makes Asphyxiate a really powerful threshold to use, even though it already is. So Asphyxiate and Wild Magic would be really, really powerful. I'm not a huge mage buff. I know very little about mage, but I can definitely see this improving the situation for mages, especially dual world mage. But having said that, there's a lot of work Jagex need to do, and I mean a hell of a lot of work to bring mage back from the dead. It's going to take something remarkable. It's not going to be like a one-off thing. It's going to take months or even years of rebalancing. But this is a good first step. Last but not least, we have the hybrid ring, the Reavers ring, which can be made from the Berserker ring and the Berserker heart, dropped by Orichalca. Now, I wouldn't blame you if all you did on day of release was log in, enter the Rex Matriarch lair, go and safe spot the Orichalca like people used to safe spot the Dagannoth Rex, just because it was the most profitable boss to kill out of the three, and just AFK it. I wouldn't blame you at all, because the special effect of this guy is actually pretty good, and it's by far the best out of all three, in my opinion anyway. So the special effect is that it will grant you a plus 5% critical strike chance. On its own, it's a very good ring to use, plus 27 strength, magic and range stat, plus 17 armor bonus and plus 5 prayer. That's really good on its own. But what makes it even more special is that it's a hybrid ring. It will grant you plus 5% critical strike chance and minus 5% accuracy. Now, looking at that immediately, you know it's certainly going to be useful in places where you already have a really high accuracy level, over 105%, so that your accuracy isn't affected. But the second thing I can think of is that it automatically renders useless the warrior ring and the range ring, which have only a 3% chance, so it kind of makes them a bit obsolete. I can see this being the meta for Slayer and low-level bosses, or should I say bosses with low defense, because you can't say no to these stats, right? Plus 5% critical hit chance is pretty big to have all the time, and not just when you use a certain ability or activate a certain item in your pocket slot, like the Erethtor's Grimoire. This is a permanent effect. It doesn't degrade. It's not going to cost you money except the first time you buy it, and it may or may not be imbuable in the future, further increasing its stats. I will stress, however, that it's going to be untradeable as soon as you make it, and you can't reverse the process. Personally, I think it's going to be really useful at certain bosses where the risk of dying is fairly low, and you have a very high hit chance on the boss anyway. So bosses like Solak, Raksha, and Araxor if you're feeling brave about it. And also bosses where you're going to be using tier 97s, such as the Inquisitor Staff, or the Pterosaur Maul, or the Hex Hunter Bow, which will, due to their effect, make your hit chance very high anyway. I do think it's a bad choice on Jagex's part though. Honestly, if there's a hybrid ring, why make it only dropped by one of the three bosses? Why don't you make it so that each of the bosses has a third of the chance of dropping it, so that overall you still have to kill all three bosses in order to get this ring at the same frequency as before? Because right now I can see a situation like with Dagannoth Rex back in the day where people would just camp the melee boss all the time just to get this ring, because it's by far the most valuable one. So I do hope they change it. I don't think it's going to change in the near future or on day of release, but you never know. You never know. The good thing is that all the bosses drop the spear pieces, and the pieces are dropped at random. So let's talk about the spear. The spear is the final reward from these bosses. It's made up of 4 different pieces, all of them tradable and all of them random drops. So a bit like the Inquisitor's Staff. They didn't release any information about whether the pieces will be tradable with, say, Lanika, because it is her spear, for a fee to get a different piece. So for example, if you get duplicates, can you trade your duplicate in for a small fee to get a unique piece? This could be really useful for Iron Man, but they didn't mention anything about it. The interesting thing about this spear is that it's actually a halberd. So it's the first halberd spear in the game that I can think of anyway, unless I've missed something in the last 2 years. And it's tier 82, but with tier 75 accuracy and tier 90 damage. So again, it's only going to be useful where you don't need the accuracy because you're so accurate anyway. And it's going to be a nice alternative to the Noxious Scythe, because it's going to have exactly the same damage rating, the same range, but with lower accuracy. So it could be great for Slayer tasks or trash mobs like ED1 or ED3. Of course, it's going to be great for Corp as well. If you can't afford the Masterwork Spear, or you're just too unlucky with the excavation to get and make the spear, then this could be a much easier way of doing it. I think it's going to be great. I really do like this one. Because it's very situational, and its final effect, which is a passive poison enhancing effect, will make or break the deal. So it's got plus 5% chance that poison hits proc on your enemy, and plus 5% poison damage as well, which effectively means a plus 10.25% to your poison damage per minute, which is actually pretty insane. Stack that with Cinderbanes and you've got an absolute winner against poisonable monsters. So for example, if you want to do Slayer tasks, this could actually be the best weapon to use because it can clear out large swathes of Slayer monsters because of the 5x5 range. At the same time, it's going to enhance the poison effect on every single monster that you hit, and it's still got tier 90 damage, so it's the same as the Noxus Scythe, so it's going to be fantastic, I think. I personally won't use it because I've got both the Masterwork Spear and the Noxus Scythe, but for people who can't afford it or Iron Men who find it too hard to get that, definitely go for this. So that brings us to the end of the rewards section. I just want to wrap up the video by talking about how I'm preparing for it and how you might want to prepare for it. Obviously, you're going to need 3 sets of weapons if you're soloing it, and the best ones to use will be dual wield as they're much easier to switch, but also tier 97s if you can because of the weaknesses and the increased damage bonus. It's 190 life points, so it's not going to be like Dagannoth Kings where you can just 2-hit them. Personally, I started camping Gregorovich for this because the crests of Sliske have gone up a lot, and I mean a hell of a lot, by at least 30 to 40%. Right now they're around 50 mil, just over 50 mil, so if you need the Greg pet like I do, and you want to AFK something, and you got the gear for it, definitely go ahead and AFK Greg. You can get about 35 kills an hour, that's what I got. Chance at a crest of Sliske, chance at the pet, can't go wrong really. I only started doing AFK Greg today, and I gotta say guys, I've really been enjoying it, really have. It's so easy to do, so simple, so fun as well, and the persistent rage relic which I recently unlocked has made it even more AFK than it might have been before because I would have had to stall adrenaline before. So yeah, highly recommended to AFK Greg this weekend as well if you're looking for something to do to prepare for this boss, especially if you're an Iron Man, and also for the Sliske armor, which is the best hybrid armor in the game, the refined Animacore Sliske armor or the normal version. I managed to make that as well after buying it from the G. Didn't quite get lucky at Greg, but I managed to make it myself anyway. I also managed to perk it up. Now the perks you want to use here will depend on whether or not you plan to use this for Slayer. I'm going to try my level best to get the Dinosaur Slayer task before the boss gets released so that I can get that enhanced damage bonus from my Slayer helmet, as well as the Genocidal perk. So I tried to get Genocidal with Biting 4, which has a 50% chance. Unfortunately, I managed to get Biting 3 and Genocidal, which is meant to be a 25% chance. So I got the rarer perk combination. Used up 7 Noxus components in the process, so I'm not very happy about that. That's all of my Noxus components, but hey, doesn't really matter. 6% critical hit chance with Biting 3. I perked this out with the stuff I will be transferring to my Mage power armor whenever I create that. Right now I don't use Mage, but I will be transferring these perks over to Mage. So I managed to get Devoted 4, Impatient 4, and the one that took me the longest took me over 100, about 120 attempts to get Relentless 5 and Crackling 4. It's meant to be a 1 in 20 chance, and I wasn't too happy about it, but you know what? I got it in the end, that's what matters. I would also highly recommend the Venom Blood perk if you're not planning to use anti-poisons or Elder Overload salves, because the ranged dinosaur Rathos is going to be able to poison you. I'd also make sure that you buy 10 of the type of ring that you want to upgrade. Of course, you can buy the heart straight from the Grand Exchange or from other players, but if you plan to do this boss, I'm pretty sure you'll probably get a heart because it's not one of those drops that's super rare like the Telos drops or AOD drops. You should be able to get one for yourself if you solo it or go in a small group, so probably best off not trying to buy it and just make it yourself. The Dagannoth Kings rings themselves are pretty expensive but not super expensive. I believe the most expensive one's a Stalker Ring, which was crazy, so during the stream I managed to flip these quickly as I was watching the stream for about 85 mil profit. Pretty crazy, but I've got a ton of these in my bank from back when I was hunting the Dagannoth Kings pets for my Insane Final Boss series. So I think they're hovering around about 10 mil right now, or even less than that. So yeah, they're kind of expensive, but I think it'll be worth it for the ring that you get at the end. And last but not least, there is only one ring to rule them all, guys, and you know which one that is. That is right, the Ring of Life. Yes, after all the client crashes and the timeouts when you're doing 4000 enraged Telos and smashing your keyboard against the monitor and so on, I think this is going to be really important, especially for hardcore Iron Men, because given the recent history at Jagex HQ, especially on Mondays, it's highly likely we're all going to be disconnected while fighting these bosses, and they're no mugs, so they could quite easily kill you. the Ring of Life, jokes aside, is actually going to be quite important for hardcore Ironman. Personally, I'm going to use the Ring of Death, obviously, and really just got to hope for the best. Not much we can do when there are all these crashes. They've tried to fix quite a few of them. I haven't had my client crash in the last couple of days, but you just never know. So that brings us to the end of the video. This video took a long time to research everything and analyze everything that we saw on the stream, so please do drop a like if you enjoyed it and consider subscribing if you want to see more of this type of content in the future, as well as more PVM and completionist content. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope to see you at the Anachronia Spirit Grove whenever these bosses do get released, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Take care, and I will see you next time.